Welcome to Bears Royal, guys. Please support me by subscribing and getting me to 1,000 subscribers. Thank you so much. One fraction of a second was all it took for practice at Halas Hall to screech to a sudden, terrifying halt. When Jayden Loving blew past the interior line and ended up inches from destroying Chicago's franchise savior, coaches didn't just blow the whistle, they felt a cold sweat run down their spines. Edge pressure is something a quarterback can step up and avoid, but when a defender tears through the center gap, the entire play structure collapses instantly into pure survival mode. That brutal, heart-stopping rep didn't just expose a gaping flaw in protection, it forced the Bears to radically overhaul their offensive line before their future was completely ruined. The atmosphere inside Halas Hall during a late August 11-on-11 period is usually charged with competitive fire, but this specific sequence transformed a routine practice rep into an absolute crime scene. The offense broke the huddle with crisp efficiency, coming up to the line to set their protection scheme against an aggressive, heavy front defense. Caleb Williams stood under center, barking out cadence adjustments, scanning the secondary, and checking his protection calls to ensure his guards were locked onto their targets. Beside him, the coaching staff watched with high expectations, eager to see their newly installed offensive concepts perform under simulated game pressure. The ball snapped, the cleats dug into the turf, and for a split second, the protection appeared solid as the edge rushers were pushed wide around the pocket perimeter. But that illusion of safety evaporated in a heartbeat. Jayden Loving didn't just rush the passer, he launched himself straight through the A-gap with a terrifying mix of raw power, explosive leverage, and lightning-quick hand technique that completely decoupled the guard-center double team before either lineman could even set their anchor. What happened next was the kind of split-second catastrophe that makes front offices hold their breath across the entire league. Loving split the gap so cleanly that he didn't even touch a jersey, bursting into the backfield at full speed before Williams had even finished the second step of his drawback. There was no time for Williams to climb the pocket, no angle to slide laterally, and no option to scramble outside into open space. Loving was completely unblocked, closing the distance in a flash of speed, his hands already extending toward the target, as if this were the fourth quarter of a division playoff game. The whistle blew with a sharp, desperate, piercing tone from the coaching staff, screeching across the practice field just as Loving came to a sudden, violent halt, inches from crashing directly into the franchise quarterback. The force of the surge alone caused Williams to recoil, flinching as a defensive lineman breached his absolute personal space in less time than it takes to blink. The entire practice field instantly fell dead silent. Players on both sides of the ball froze in place, processing the sheer lethality of the rep, while the offensive line unit stared at each other in utter disbelief and complete confusion. Head coach, offensive coordinator, and line coaches stormed toward the huddle with visible fury, signaling a complete halt to the sequence as the gravity of the mistake washed over everyone present. A mistake on the edge is annoying, but a total breakdown right up the gut is an existential threat to an NFL franchise. When edge rushers bend around the outside arc, a skilled quarterback has space to maneuver, step up into the pocket, or slide away from danger while keeping his eyes downfield. Interior penetration eliminates all time and space, blinding the passer and collapsing the pocket directly onto his chest before a single route can even develop. As Williams shook his head and stepped back to review the play call, the coaching staff immediately gathered the linemen to replay the wreckage in real time. The tape would later reveal a catastrophic miscommunication in sliding protection, leaving the center isolated against an explosive interior pass rusher while the guard stepped outside to assist against a phantom blitz look. That single mistake left the most dangerous area on the football field entirely unprotected. It was a terrifying reality check that demonstrated just how fragile an offensive ecosystem becomes when interior pressure goes unchecked. The whistle didn't just end a practice rep, it signaled an emergency wake-up call for the entire Chicago Bears organization. Edge pressure is a problem every quarterback learns to manage, but interior penetration is an absolute death sentence for an offensive play concept. To truly understand why that single practice rep at Halas Hall sent shockwaves through the coaching staff, you have to break down the cold, unyielding geometry of the football pocket. When an elite edge rusher beats a tackle off the line, he is forced to take a wide, curved path around the perimeter. That outside arc creates distance, and distance translates directly into precious fractions of a second. A quarterback with good pocket awareness can sense that edge heat, take a step forward into the clean, firm turf in front of him, and buy enough time to deliver an accurate throw downfield. The offensive tackle doesn't even need to win cleanly. He just needs to push the edge rusher slightly past the deep depth of the pocket to preserve the throwing lane. Interior pressure completely destroys this mathematical advantage by attacking on the shortest path between 2 points, a straight line directly to the quarterback's chest. When a dominant interior disruptor like Jayden Loving explodes through the guard center gap, there is nowhere left for the quarterback to step. The pocket doesn't just contract, it violently implodes from the inside out. Stepping up into the pocket becomes impossible because the defender is already occupying that exact space. Sliding laterally into the B gaps is cut off because the guard and tackle are actively engaged on those blocks, creating a chaotic wall of bodies that traps the passer. Escaping outside into open field requires turning away from the line of scrimmage, which completely ruins the timing of the play, kills the progression read, and invites relentless pursuit from the edge rushers waiting on the outside boundaries. The mechanics of how interior penetration wins are uniquely brutal and immediate. It begins at the snap with an explosive get-off that catches interior linemen off balance before they can establish a solid base or generate power from their lower body. Center guard combinations rely heavily on synchronized footwork, proper hand placement, and clear communication to pass off stunting defenders or execute double teams. If a defensive tackle fires off the ball with elite low pad level and fires his hands into the chest frame of the guard, he instantly disrupts the offensive line's leverage. By driving his hips upward and through the gap, the rusher forces the guard onto his heels and pushes him backward into the quarterback's landing zone. Alternatively, a quick swim or arm-over move at the snap can completely bypass the offensive lineman's punch, rendering his strength useless as the defender shoots cleanly into the backfield untouched. When interior pressure breaches the pocket in under 2 seconds, the entire play structure collapses instantly regardless of how open the wide receivers might be downfield. Passing concepts are intricately timed routes designed around 3-step, 5-step, or 7-step dropbacks. Each step of the quarterback's drop coincides with specific route breaks across the secondary. But when the interior gap collapses immediately, the quarterback is forced to abort his drop, take his eyes off his targets, and shift into raw self-preservation mode before his back foot even hits the ground. He cannot set his stance, transfer his weight properly, or follow through on his throwing motion. This mechanical breakdown is precisely why interior pressure is a quarterback's ultimate kryptonite. It strips away his vision, negates his athleticism, and eliminates the fundamental spacing that modern offensive schemes depend on. A quarterback can survive a beat on the outside, but when the center and guard gap fails, the play is dead before it ever has a chance to begin. For Chicago, fixing those interior breakdown mechanics wasn't just a tactical adjustment, it was a critical necessity to ensure the protection and survival of their young passer. Standing in the crosshairs of an interior collapse tests far more than a quarterback's physical tools. It exposes the very processing speed and psychological fortitude of his field vision. When Jayden Loving sliced through the center gap at Halas Hall, Caleb Williams was forced to react in a fraction of a heartbeat, offering a stark window into how young signal callers process instant trauma within the pocket. In that horrifying moment, the instinctive reaction for almost any quarterback is to drop his eyes down to the immediate threat, lock onto the oncoming rusher, and brace for impact. Doing so, however, surrenders the play entirely, blinding the passer to open receivers downfield and allowing the defense to dictate the terms of engagement. Williams' ability to manage his spatial awareness under immediate interior pressure represents the critical line between a rookie who panic scrambles into deeper trouble and an elite distributor who manipulates pocket chaos to his advantage. When the interior gap breaks down, a quarterback's eye discipline undergoes an extreme stress test. Field vision is not merely about looking down the field, it is the mental ability to maintain a wide peripheral panoramic map of the secondary while simultaneously sensing the closing distance of defensive linemen without directly staring at them. As Loving breached the line, Williams demonstrated the split-second instincts that made him a top-tier prospect, instinctively shifting his upper body to minimize his target silhouette while keeping his chin level and his eyes firmly fixed on the deep safety rotation. Rather than immediately turning his back and dropping 20 yards behind the line of scrimmage, a dangerous habit that plagues athletic passers facing interior heat, he attempted to subtle slide, micro-adjusting his feet within a shrinking window of space to create just enough clearance to flick the ball away or execute a quick checkdown. This snap-second processing under fire highlights the subtle growth areas that separate survival from success when reading a collapsing pocket. High-level quarterbacks learn to read interior pressure not through sight, but through feeling the structural displacement of the offensive line's backside hips. When a center or guard gets driven backward, the physical pocket floor rises, cutting off the natural passing lane between the numbers. In response, Williams must calibrate his drop-back depth, learning when to climb slightly off-axis or deliver from an awkward platform-less stance before the defender's reach closes the window entirely. His natural arm talent allows him to release the ball from various sidearm slots without setting his back foot, but relying strictly on off-platform throws against relentless interior disruption is a dangerous, unsustainable crutch. The progression from chaotic panic to disciplined pocket navigation requires a mental shift in how a quarterback views incoming pressure. Interior heat forces the passer to make immediate, decisive risk-reward calculations. Throw the ball away into the dirt, absorb the hit to deliver a completion, or use subtle footwork to buy one extra tick of time for a hot route to open over the middle. In this explosive practice rep, Williams showed both the promise of his quick-release instincts and the harsh reality of NFL defensive speed. He recognized that when the A-gap caves, the middle of the field often opens up directly behind the rushing linebacker or tackle, requiring an immediate sight adjustment to hit his tight end or slot receiver on a rapid slant route. Surviving and thriving amidst interior chaos is ultimately about mastering calm in the eye of a storm. Every unblocked interior rush is a masterclass in spatial economy, teaching a young quarterback exactly how many milliseconds he truly has before his throwing motion is compromised. As Williams continues to refine his reaction mechanics, learning to pair rapid eye progression with subtle, decisive footwork, reps like Loving's unblocked charge become invaluable learning tools. They force the passer to harden his pocket presence, sharpen his peripheral vision, and adapt to the brutal reality that in the NFL, safety is an illusion that can shatter in an instant. Fixing the catastrophic leak in the interior protection required a swift, calculated response from the Chicago coaching staff before the next snap was even called. Recognizing that individual talent means nothing without ironclad scheme communication, the offensive line coaches immediately halted the session to fundamentally rebuild the mechanics of their center guard gap rules. The solution was not simply telling players to hold their ground harder. It required a structural realignment in how protection calls are communicated at the line of scrimmage and how double-team combo blocks are executed against dynamic interior rushers like Jayden Loving. The primary fix began with refining the slide protection rules that dictate how the offensive line distributes split-second defensive fronts. Previously, the protection call relied on a full slide concept that pushed the center toward the boundary threat, leaving the guard isolated in a wide technique island against interior disruptors. To neutralize explosive interior penetration, the coaching staff adjusted the unit to a half-slide man-turn protection, effectively pinning the center and guard together in a permanent tight hip combo block against the defensive nose and 3 technique tackles. Under these modified rules, the center is no longer permitted to vacate the A-gap early to chase second-level linebackers until the guard establishes a firm, two-handed chest lock on the interior rusher. By forcing the center to anchor the post block while the guard clamps the hip, the line creates an impenetrable wall directly in front of the quarterback's spot. In addition to shifting protection rules, the coaches completely overhauled the physical mechanics of the guard center double team. In modern passing offenses, interior linemen often make the fatal mistake of stepping too wide with their outside feet to help on edge stunts, leaving a fatal crease between their hips. Loving had exploited this exact structural flaw by using a sudden head fake to force the guard wide, shooting the gap before the lineman could close the door. The staff mandated a strict hip-to-hip alignment technique on all interior passes. As the ball is snapped, both the center and guard execute short lateral power steps that bring their inner thighs into direct contact, eliminating any physical daylight through the gap. If a rusher attempts to split the seam, he now impacts a unified 400-pound wall rather than two isolated blockers trying to recover off balance. Communication under pre-snap cadence was also completely overhauled to account for late defensive shifts. Instead of allowing the center to make a single static call before setting his hands, the coaching staff empowered Caleb Williams to re-identify the interior threat right up to the final second of the play clock. If the defense shifts an explosive rusher, like Loving directly into the A-gap post-huddle, Williams flashes a rapid sight adjustment call that signals the guard and center to lock into an immediate squeeze block. This eliminates the fatal delay where a guard is left guarding air while an unblocked defender accelerates through the pocket floor. As practice resumed, the impact of these mechanical overhauls was immediate. On the very next team period, when Loving tried to burst through the center gap with the exact same quick swim move, the center's inside shoulder sealed the entry while the guard's punch halted his momentum cold. The pocket held its form, the interior ceiling remained flat, and Williams was able to step cleanly into his throw, delivering a strike down the seam. By patching the guard center gap through strict footwork discipline, scheme adjustments, and unified communication, Chicago transformed a potentially fatal protection flaw into an ironclad fortress designed to keep their franchise savior safe. The true value of a brutal practice rep lies in its ability to expose weaknesses when the stakes are still purely instructional rather than disastrously real. Jayden Loving's explosive interior rush at Halas Hall wasn't just a highlight for a young defensive disruptor, it was a mandatory diagnostic test for an organization rebuilding its foundation from the inside out. In the modern NFL, where elite interior defensive linemen destroy passing games faster and more completely than traditional edge rushers ever could, surviving a trial by fire in August is the only way an offensive line learns how to protect its most valuable asset when September arrives. This baptism of fire for Chicago's offensive line serves as a crucial milestone in Caleb Williams' development and the team's broader offensive maturity. High-caliber offenses are not built on flawless practice scripts where every protection works seamlessly. They are forged in the chaotic recovery after a breakdown. By identifying the exact communication breakdowns in the guard center gap, refining physical hip-to-hip combo techniques, and empowering Williams to adjust protections at the line, the coaching staff turned a potential tragedy into an invaluable coaching masterpiece. The reality is simple. Every elite defense in the division will test Chicago's interior protection with blitz packages, stunts, and power rushes. Facing Loving's raw, unblocked quickness in practice guarantees that when Williams sees that same look under the stadium lights, it won't be a terrifying surprise, it will be a solved problem. For Williams, developing a calm, unwavering pocket presence amidst interior chaos is the final piece of his transition into a premier NFL quarterback, a passer who trusts his interior wall, stays grounded, keeps his eyes scanning downfield, and delivers thrown balls with full power and mechanical precision. A passer who constantly worries about a rush through the center gap develops skittish feet, prematurely drops his eye level, and escapes into low-percentage scrambles that ruin play timing. The adjustments made on the Halas Hall practice field directly foster that vital trust, allowing Williams to step up confidently into the pocket floor and exploit the secondary windows that open up when defenses commit extra resources to interior pressure. As Chicago continues to refine its roster and scheme ahead of the regular season, the competition between Loving and the interior line will remain the single most important iron-sharpening iron dynamic on the entire team. Loving's rapid ascent proves that he possesses the game-disrupting instincts necessary to anchor a championship-caliber defense, while the offensive line's immediate tactical answer proves this coaching staff has the vision and adaptability to protect their franchise investment. The brutal rep that temporarily halted practice didn't derail Chicago's progress, it accelerated it, hardening the entire roster for the relentless battles ahead. Now, looking at how this dramatic moment reshaped both sides of the ball at Halas Hall, the big question shifts to how this dynamic plays out when the regular season games actually count. Does Jayden Loving's game-changing interior penetration earn him a starting rotational spot to terrorize opposing quarterbacks? Or will Chicago's newly reinforced guard center protection prove completely unbreakable against the league's top defensive fronts? Drop your thoughts in the comments below on whether this offensive line overhaul is enough to keep Caleb Williams clean all season long. Don't forget to hit that like button if you enjoyed this deep dive film breakdown, and subscribe to the channel for continuous high-level tactical updates on every major development across the league.